So where does this all lead? To me, some of the changes that are happening now on the fly, some of the band-aids being put on education by colleges and universities, I think will stick for the long run and will make our higher education system better and will provide us with institutions that we need in order to meet the challenges of the 21st century. And that's what I call the third wave coming out of the global pandemic. This might happen as early as next spring, or it might happen once we have a vaccine. But what I think is going to happen is that we're going to see three big changes in higher education on the other side of this global pandemic. The first is a much bigger and broader adoption of both online and hybrid education. I don't imagine residential colleges going away, but it's clear to all of us, even before this pandemic, that traditional residential higher education, while highly valued, was also incredibly expensive and out of the price range for many students, including some of our most vulnerable students, low-income students and first-generation students. I can imagine coming out of this pandemic that our experience with online education, and we're getting better with it every day, and as I said, I think wave 2 will greatly improve online education. I could imagine us in our colleges and universities not only wanting to, but needing to experiment more with more online courses, but more hybrid courses that allow students to spend time in the classroom where it's most needed, engaged in learning with their professors. I think you're going to see fewer lectures. Most of those lectures will move online. And I think you're going to see professors engaging with their students and providing them with the mentorship that they need in the classrooms. So that's point one of this third wave, where I see this change in terms of online and hybrid education. Second, I think some of the changes that we're seeing already this spring in terms of admissions will stick for the long term. In many ways, we all know that our admission system is out of whack. It requires way too much thinking early on in high school about where you want to go to college and what you want to major in. And I think that the shortening of the admissions calendar this year, where juniors weren't able to take the SAT in the spring and weren't able to visit campuses, might end up sticking for the long term. And we might see an admission system that is much more focused on the senior year, where that focus should be. We also might see a big change in how testing is used and really return college admissions to what students are doing in high school and over the 4 years of high school, rather than what they do in 4 hours of a test. And third, many colleges and universities were candidly not doing that well financially before this crisis hit. And what I can see coming out of this is that colleges and universities are going to have to pivot much more for the long term. They're going to have to become much more entrepreneurial in who they serve. I could imagine coming out of this crisis, colleges and universities looking much more at short-term course offerings rather than just the traditional and legacy 2-year and 4-year degrees. At the graduate level, I could imagine many more programs that look less like a 3-year law degree or a 3-year MBA degree, and many more programs that are more focused on the skills that students need in today's workforce. To me, thinking about what colleges and universities will need to do to come out better on the other side of this pandemic will allow us to finally have a higher education system that is truly diverse and truly meets the diverse needs of our students, because we don't have that now. And I think many colleges and universities are going to be forced to do that coming out of this pandemic. In many ways, I'm really confident about what higher education looks like on the other side of COVID-19. We know that that more people around the world need education more than ever before in our human lifetimes. We know that our institutions have been serving people in their communities and around the world for hundreds of years. It's not that these institutions will go out of business. Some might shrink, some might merge with other institutions. But I could imagine, just like we've seen around the world over the last couple of weeks, entrepreneurs and business people really rethinking what they do and pivoting to really serve people in these last couple of weeks. I can imagine many of our colleges and universities doing the same and starting to serve the students that will need them in the coming years.